Hey there. Thanks so much for joining me today. I have been gone for a few weeks and I've gotten a lot of messages, a lot of emails. It's been great to feel the support for the channel that I've been building and for this content. And in responding to one of the subscribers who emailed me, they had asked me about this, and I know that this is also something a million other people have been really curious about, and that is, how do you get your expression maps in Dorico and get them to work in Cubase? So I'm going to talk about that, about the caveats of dealing with that, and then hopefully it will also illuminate just some of the approaches one could take when they're working in both Dorico and Cubase. So yeah, thanks Cubase for being here. I know there's some others on the line right now, so thank you guys for being here. And so let's talk a little bit, just kick things off with understanding clearly what the difference between them is, because here's why most people are wondering how to do this. Cubase expression maps are not exactly the same as Dorico expression maps. You can't just import them, which is frustrating and a little counterintuitive since they're both Steinberg products, but they don't work that way. Why? Mainly because Dorico actually is far more sophisticated. It's designed to respond to playback techniques that are in your score. So in other words, sort of engraving things that are actually in the score that you see visibly need to be somehow connected back to triggering these samples. And so it's a bit more complicated because there's that notation sort of first approach in Dorico. In Cubase, it's really a much simpler model. It's like a MIDI trigger. That's it. There's a MIDI trigger, and when the playhead is moving along and it hits a MIDI trigger, it triggers that thing. That's all it is. So Dorico is more sophisticated, and so if you try to put Cubase expression maps into Dorico, they're too simplistic. And if you try to put a Dorico expression map just as is into Cubase, Cubase is like, what's all this? I'm not a notation program. So you do have to basically massage these a lot, to the point where I think probably a lot of times you're going to be rebuilding both. Now, is that worth it? That's up to you. For me, for basic applications, yes, or for instruments I use a lot. So for example, I use the Berlin series a lot in my final renders. And so to build out expression maps in Cubase to match the one that I have in Dorico is not that overwhelming. If you've seen my other videos, you'll see that my Dorico expression map, you know, I have one for brass, one for winds, one for strings. It's very simple. I don't have 50, you know, I don't have one for English horn and one for French horn. I don't have that. I just have one. And if you have questions about that, by all means, post in the comments. But I want to dive into this so you can see what's going on. So let me switch over to my desktop. I'm sorry about the screen flickering. It's weird. I'm not sure why that's happening. It must maybe is a camera setting. Hopefully now that you're looking at my desktop, it's flickering a little less. It's just me that's flickering. So sorry about that. So let's just look at what I got here. I've got, I started off with a Dorico project because I figured that's how way most people watching this video would start. So I just wrote this very simple sort of 3-part string tune here for 8 bars, I guess. And I literally just opened that up using in Cubase. Now you can go to import and you can import, where is it? Dorico project file. And when you do that, I got this. And I'm going to play it back for you so you can hear what it sounds like, but then I'm going to talk with you about how I connected all this up to get exactly the same sounds, okay? So very, very simple little track, and you can see in the notation that I do have the spiccato notes there, and the OR just switches at bass is sort of like an arco switch back to normal. And when I opened this project, it was pretty good. This is what we got in the score editor. It's really nice to have the new score editor. Let me get rid of my right pane there. Actually, I'll get rid of the other panes too. And so you can see the score is really very elegant, looks very Dorico-like, has my chords in there. It even created a chord track up here based on the chord symbols. So very nice. I didn't have to do anything with the notes, but what I did have to do was tell Cubase how to play naturals and spiccato. So the first step you want to do when you're trying to get your Dorico project to play back identically in Cubase is to start with this over here, this screen. I want to make sure you're seeing this. So this is a spreadsheet that I've developed over the years and is something that I've shared. I'm going to actually share this in a few video links and descriptions as well so that people can have access to them. But basically, it just gives me a way to document and organize instrument ports or MIDI ports, for instruments. Then I assign channels to individual bass switches. These are common articulations, or really any articulation that I need. And then add-ons, which is a feature that's really unique to Dorico. This is something where I would normally set up add-ons are things that are compound articulations like consordino or something like that. It's extra and above the baseline, you know. So I might be able to have natural or spiccato consordino. So I document this first, and that's really important. I think you'll see why in the next several steps. So once you've documented this, you're going to import your project into Cubase, import your Dorico project from Cubase. That's the next step. The third step is to create and assign these expression maps. So let's look at how I did that. Okay, so I've already played this back for you, but if I go ahead and just walk through this, I'm going to show you exactly what I've done, because I think sometimes, you know, I'll run into problems, and half the fun, so to speak, is actually seeing me work through these. So this is what I get now. All right, and when I play it back, you can see the MIDI triggering, but there's no sound. So what I have to do from here is create expression maps. Now, in the case of Dorico, the expression maps are very simple for this. This is building on the videos I've done recently about the Berlin Free Orchestra, which has limited playback. But the principles here are exactly the same, and I really didn't want to dive into like doing the Berlin series, because this video would be like 6 hours long, and a lot of people use different libraries and such. But let's say that I go to expression maps here, and I go to my BFO strings. Where is that? Here we are. And I've got these very simple things here. Now, I'm only using spiccato and natural in this particular piece, so those are the only two articulations that I'm going to build out in this example. So natural I see is on channel 1, and spiccato is on channel 4. And I've documented that over here, that natural is on channel 1, spiccato is on channel 4. I know from my VE Pro instance that I have the violin section on port 2, the viola section on port 3, and the cello section on port 4. And I can actually drag over my VE Pro project here, so you can just see how that's set up. So if I go into my BFO strings, you can see here that violins are on port 2, violas are on port 3, and cello section is on port 5, even though the solo cello is on port 4. Okay, so that should give you a very clear sense of why I have this information over here. This is very sparse because this is a very simple library. There's lots of room here to fill up data. Hopefully, with this being a very simple example, then you can follow through with your own library. And of course, if you have questions, always post in the comments, because in case you haven't noticed, if you're new to the channel, I really do read the comments. I really do get back to people. I'm glad to help, and I'm really interested in exploring it. Okay, but I look up these values, what's going on with the channels, And for each articulation I'm using, I can even see the articulations I'm using by selecting like that and coming down here into the key editor and looking at the playing techniques. And I can see when I zoom out, I've only got natural, spiccato, and natural. Those are the only two that I'm using on the violin. I'm only using natural on the viola and violoncello. Okay. So let's bounce back here. Let's take it. Imagine you've just imported your project. You've got the MIDI there, but it's not playing back. And you know this information from your spreadsheet about the ports and channels. How do you connect it all up? So what we're going to do is we are going to go to the VSTI in the right zone here, this track. I'm going to add a rack instrument set to Vienna Ensemble Pro. This comes up asking me if I want to set up a MIDI track exclusively for this. No, I don't. I've already got my MIDI tracks. I do need to connect here. So I'm going to connect to the BFO strings, which is in Vienna Ensemble Pro. Now that that's connected, I'm going to go over here and going to get rid of my right channel, and this time look at the routing. So what is the output for violins? It's going to be down here in the Vienna Ensemble Pro, but what port? Well, it's going to be port 2, and I know that from my chart over here. Violins on 2, violas on 3, cellos on 5. So that's what I'm going to do. Violins on 2, the viola, I'm going to set that to 3, and the cello section, I'm going to set to 5. Okay, so the ports are set up correctly, but you can see that the channels are all set to 1. That's okay because the expression map is actually going to determine the channels for us. So now I only need one expression map for all 3 of these instruments. I don't need violin, viola, and cello, and that's good news because making expression maps is tedious. So it's nice that we don't have to do that. So I'm going to, on the left-hand zone, open up the inspector and go to the expression maps. If you don't see that, then right-click and go to Setup Sections and make sure that you have expression maps checked off here. Sometimes that's not enabled by default. Okay, I'm going to open this, click that little expression map window, opens this up, and this is how we create an expression map. It looks very, very different than what we see in Dorico, but I'm going to go ahead and create one. I'm going to call it VEP BFO strings, okay, and I just needed natural, and I needed spiccato, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just add arco as close as I get to natural here. I don't think there's an ORD in here. No, there isn't. So I'm just going to go with arco. And spiccato, I think there is a spiccato in here, so I'll select that. And I'm going to leave both of these articulations as direction. This is the same as Dorico, where you can, for a playback technique in Dorico, you can set a playback technique to direction or attribute. Attribute applies to just that note that it's on. Direction means it applies from that note on until another articulation or playback technique is chosen. Both natural and spiccato make sense to have them direction based. So that's all I need. That's my expression map here. But of course, now that I have that done, I do have to route these to the correct channels, right? So naturals go to channel 1, spiccatos go to channel 4. So we're going to come down here. I'm going to kick this channel 1 for naturals. And for spiccato, I'm going to send that to channel 4. That's all I have to do. I don't have to worry about something more complicated than that. Now, when I play back right now, I'm still not getting any sound. And why is that? That's because although I've created the expression map, I haven't assigned it. Also, I haven't empowered the audio outputs from VE Pro to come into Cubase yet. So even once I add this, I'm still going to need to take a step of enabling or activating audio outputs from my rack instrument. So here for violin, I'm going to choose the BFO strings. Like I said, I can use the same one for all 3 of these. If I had a French horn in here, obviously I'd have to create a new one. But as you can see, I still don't get any sound because over in my rack instrument, I don't have the outputs enabled. And we can see here, if again I bring in my VE Pro instance and I look at strings, we can actually see the audio playing in VE Pro for violins, violas, and cello, but we're not hearing them in Cubase, right? We can look in the control room here. There's obviously no audio coming through. And that's just because we haven't enabled these outputs. So you can see the violins are on output 3 and 4, violas are on 5, 6, and the cellos are on 9 and 10. So that's what I need to do, is go into VSTI into the rack here, and I click on this little button here that says activate outputs, and I'm going to activate 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and 9 and 10. Like that. I have some stuck notes there. So I have stuck notes on violin. Sometimes I just drag my finger. I don't know why that happens. But if I drag my finger across my keyboard, it fixes it. All right, so now I've got this. And that's playing exactly what I had in Dorico. If I was in Dorico and I had connected up the VE Pro instances, I'm sorry that I'm flickering here. I'm going to have to find out what the cause of that is. But that's hopefully beside the point. I'm pointing over here because this is where my video monitor is. I think this should give you a very clear sense of how you can go about setting all of this up so that your Dorico expression maps get migrated into Cubase in an orderly and predictable, reliable way. And hopefully it's not too much work. Like I said, try to make an expression map per family. So you're just doing like winds and strings and brass. I've had some success doing that. I just have one for each family, and it works great. And then once I get it working in Dorico, I use that as the reference for creating this spreadsheet over here. This spreadsheet, I go and fill in all this data from my Dorico expression map so that when I'm building the Cubase expression map, then I have a good reference, okay? So I'm sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know the audio playback from Cubase was not good. I guess maybe it was a bit distorted. I'm going to check on that on the backside. Once I've shut down the video, I can go and look at the render. And if you have questions, please let me know. I am going to be covering this topic as well as figuring out why my head keeps flickering here. And I will see you guys again soon. All right. Thanks again. Bye for now.